What's going on, listeners? This is your host, Brother X. And before we get started with today's episode, I just want to let you know about this wonderful platform called Anchor. It is one of the number one free podcasting platforms that allows you to both not only record, edit, and design your podcast to your needs, where you're able to push out and distribute your podcast to all your listeners across all the different podcasting platforms, whether it is Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, you name it, they are connected to it, and they're a wonderful platform. It's totally free. You can check them out at Anchor.fm. And with that being said, guys, let's get into this. Hey listeners, this is your host, Brother X. I've come to you guys before today's episode, and I wanted to just make sure I put the disclaimer out here. Nothing crazy happened in today's episode, but I want to make sure that it's clear that all views and opinions that are expressed in this week's discussion are of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the opinions or thoughts of the Truth and Transparency podcast. With that being said, guys, let's get started with today's episode. And welcome back to another episode of the Truth and Transparency podcast with your host, Brother X. And listeners, I'm going to keep it real with you. Coach of Sciences needed to get on our mental health break a little bit earlier than others. So she'll be back in a few weeks to take up part two of the conversation we're going to have today. So we're just going to keep it at that. So shout out to the Coach of Scientists. We love you. Protect your mentals. You're probably off somewhere eating funnel cakes and watching something on your phone. But yeah, here on the Truth and Transparency podcast, we talk openly, honestly about everything in between, why people can't get right in 2023. And yeah, man, just love on your peoples, man. I'm gonna keep it simple like that. We a little bit mellow today, maybe, probably. I don't know. After these few stories, we'll see. But before we go any further, we want to make sure that we show love to all of our fans and supporters, man. I don't know if Mr. Smith is going to talk about it, but I took a look at our updated numbers for our analytics. We are at 3,900 plus plays across all podcasting platforms, so we're doing pretty good with that. We've hit about 50 plus Spotify followers, as well as we're doing numbers, man. I took a look and I realized we're already about 18 episodes rewind of the this season, so we're doing pretty well, man. I think we hit our stride. We playing well, playing better than a certain team that I'm not going to speak on. We won't get into that later in Sports Center. All right, but yeah, you know her, you love her. She drinks blue Kool-Aid in her blue room with a blue dress and her blue pillowcase and the blue pillows and her blue car in her blue little world. She hang out with the blue men. Quincy, introduce yourself.
Not everything is blue. Look, I went through my blue period. All right, I'm good. I wear all colors now. Okay, I wear all the colors. Anyway, it's your girl Queen C back again. They let me out of the cage for April. They're gonna put me back until May. But I am 61 and a half inches of fluff and fun, ready to go.
See, it's not really a cage. We have to borrow a step stool, and it's always on loan. So some people rent it out. Like Tom Cruise rents it every other month. So we have a partnership where we share it.
It's a kennel with a step stool.
You got to step on the step stool to get into the kennel. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm that short.
Wow.
Fair enough. At least you're able to see the point sometimes. All right, Mr. Smith. You know him, you love him. He got like 3 Tracy McGrady jerseys in the back, including the vintage Toronto Raptors one. Because if you know, you know. Mr. Smith, introduce yourself.
I will give it to Tracy McGrady. Before LeBron, I was the biggest Tracy McGrady fan. Had his original hardwood classic Orlando Magic's jersey with the white stripe. Still kind of mad that somebody stole that at Hampton's weight room. If you know who you are, I'm going to be coming for that ass at some point, and you're going to pay what you owe. Sincerely yours, the Santa Stalker. Anywho, it's your favorite fed, Mr. Smith, also known as the Soundbite Poppy, also known as Mr.
Damn, son, where'd you find this?
And I want to thank the listeners for the comments, the place, and subscriptions. Keep feeding us, we'll keep feeding y'all. Just a few quick things. Number one, shout out to Chaotic Culture Podcast for always showing us love and support. Always go check them out. Number two, there was something that came up on my timeline recently where they said, who was one of the first YouTubers that you watch? And they had like, not Kaiser, not. They had I Show Speed and KSI and people like that. And I'm like, y'all are showing y'all age because I'm sorry. Primetime YouTube greatest of all time, Black people. Hot Damn I Rock, Dormtainment, and Spoken Reasons before him and Emmanuel got that beef for talking on the questions. You want to talk about primetime Sunday at 7 o'clock? You were waiting for a new Hot Damn I Rock story and a new Dormtainment story. You're just like, yes, this is the life right here. Yes, Queensy.
I want to take it a little further back. You was also watching that Green Bench comedy, and you was also watching them G.I. Joe voiceovers. If you know, you know.
You fucking with my brains, Charles.
I'm a juggernaut, bitch.
Bitch, I babysit and I do hair.
And then lastly, Chance the Rapper was at Carnival recently, and homie was getting twerked on by somebody that was not his wife. And I am here to say this, people. Let the man get twerked on his fucking carnival. The whole point of Carnival is just to twerk and have a good time. It ain't like he trying to stroke the girl. It ain't like he trying to be like, you know what, you want to be bothered, baby mama? Like, no, he literally was just having a good time at Carnival. That is one of the few times where women kind of go in knowing, okay, I'm gonna twerk on somebody, but we ain't going no further than that. And it's kind of like understood in the culture. So again, from what we've talked about last week regarding Freaknik and how if it could ever come back, that just proved my point exactly, people. Everybody focus about, oh my God. But you're not enjoying the festivities. They are.
Yeah.
You're not. Just saying.
Like, hey, if she want to be in the carnival and twerk, let them twerk and be married, or whatever the good book says. What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I just want to say, he just wanted to have the highs and the lows.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
Mm-hmm.
Hey. And
The
for all
peaks
you know,
in the valley.
his wife somewhere going like, yeah, that's my baby. You better go ahead and get twerked on. Mm-hmm. You want to know how he got that 3 on his hat? We're going to find out later.
Wow.
All right. But before we go any further, we got to have a quick mental health check-in. So let's start with Queen C. How you feeling?
Feeling a lot better. Been crazy on my end especially this week. Had 2 health scares from 2 of our younger family members, but both are okay, thankfully. So I'm just trying to calm down from all of that and just be peaceful. But outside of that, I've been okay.
That's real. Mrs. Smith, how you doing?
Tired, honestly. Just a lot. It's there's some allergies that picked up recently, which honestly is just there's like a ridiculous amount of pollen to where I've been sneezing like nonstop like the last week and some change, but it's starting to ease up now, so I'm glad on that. But as we talk about mental health today, I'm ready for that small little break just to be like, all right, let me reset, let me get myself together, especially with work picking up right now. It's like I'm ready for a vacation, which will be coming relatively soon, and I'm looking forward to it.
Respect. I'll keep it short and simple. Life is fucking lifing right now, really hard, and your boy is about this close, like the world's tiniest violin small away from being like, yeah, I'm gonna go off the grid for an entire month. That life is life. We just want to talk about life is like fucking you over. Yeah, life got hands, and the bitch got on the puffy hood coat with the black Air Forces and the hot Cheeto fingers. That type of fighting. So just keep your boy lifted in your prayers, man. Keep the culture scientists lifted in your prayers, and yeah, man, just be kind. You never know what people are going through. But on another note, I'm really trying to figure out what was going through this first person said. Mrs. Smith, you had something for the show?
Yeah, so Tennessee Air National Guardsman arrested after applying to be a hitman on a fake website.
Hey, yo, what the fuck?
Yeah. So a Tennessee Air National Guardsman was arrested last week after he applied for an assassin's job on a fake website. On Thursday, 21-year-old Josiah Ernesto Garcia was charged with using interstate facilities to commit murder for hire using a fake website called rentahitman.com. I'm going to just pause right there because nigga.
Nigga. You dumb as hell.
Are you dumb?
Are you stupid?
Oh my gosh. So, according to a news release from the U.S. Attorney Henry C. Leventis, he was arrested after meeting with an undercover FBI agent to work out a contract to kill someone in exchange for money. The press release revealed that Garcia found the website in February after looking online for contract mercenary work to support his family. On the employment inquiry form, he indicated that he was interested in being a hitman. After receiving a response to his initial request, he supplied more identity documents, a headshot, and a resume that outlined his skill as a marksman and his employment in the Air National Guard since July 2021. According to his resume, Garcia had been nicknamed Reaper due to his military experience in marksmanship. It also stated he was an expert marksman awarded for not missing a single bullseye on all the targets and for shooting expert with 2 or more weapons. Yeah, I'm gonna just stop right there and go. You already technically are a hitman in a way because you're in the military, deployed probably to take care of our adversaries outside of the country. Why would you apply to be more of a hitman inside the country? Secondly, why do you think a website called rentahitman.com would not be flagged by the government? That doesn't make any sense. And again, there's always the argument that, oh, he's 21, he's young, whatever. Yet when black 21-year-olds make a mistake, we get the book thrown at us. Oh, he get life without parole. So just had to put that there. But I'm going to swing this other piece into this because talking about governmental F-ups, if you haven't heard, there's another Air Force Guardsman who's also 21 years old. His name is Jack Teixeira. I don't know how to say his name. Whatever, I butchered it. I don't care. But they arrested him because he leaked Pentagon national security documents. Want to know where he leaked them, listeners? Let me tell you. He leaked them on the gaming channel Discord, an internet gaming chat room. The reason why he did it was because he wanted to look cool in front of his friends. Now, as your relative Fed, I'm going to give you a little secret. Usually when you actually work for the government and you have access to those types of national security documents, you have to take a training where they say, do not leak this shit. If you do, you not only will face financial penalty, but you also could be as much as arrested. Well, guess what this guy did? He did exactly that. And to which I'm also wondering, why the hell would you think leaking national security documents would make you look cool? That is the epitome of you have no hoes, you get no swag, no nothing. And I'm just really, and the last thing is, what kind of clearance did he have to be able to have access to those national security documents? Like, that's the biggest one. Because, homie, if you ever have access to national security documents, ladies and gentlemen, you have to have a need to know and you have to have the right clearance. So where was the disconnect on this? But either way, both of these 21-year-olds, they dumb as hell. They dumb as hell, and sucks to be y'all. Back to you, Brother X.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just crazy, man. But you want Quincy.
Y'all know what this reminds me of. Y'all remember Latarvian Milton?
Oh no.
Yeah, it's fun to do bad things. I just want to do hood rat stuff with my friends. That's these two motherfuckers. First off, how dumb are you to go to a website called, what was it? Find a Hitman?
Rentahitman.com.
If that don't sound like a police setup, a government setup, I don't know what does. First off. Secondly, what the hell made you think that you could apply to be a hitman? You don't apply for that job. That Lord, where's the common sense? And then you submitted a headshot so they knew exactly what the fuck you looked like? You idiot.
Like my nigga was applying to be a security guard at a bank is the way he was acting.
Top flight security.
We'll get back to that another day. You know what else is crazy? Because niggas be robbing. An elderly banker did something very interesting. So this elderly banker decided to apologize to the teller during the heist and say, "I didn't mean to scare you." Let's read further. A 78-year-old bank robber demonstrated proper etiquette giggity in the field after apologizing to the staff she may have startled. Bonnie Gucci, that sounds like an old Italian name, is making headlines for following her most recent stick up in Missouri. Keyword, recent. My nigga, if you see her, how? The elderly woman entered a Gopert Financial Bank in Pleasant Hill on Wednesday, April 5th. She handed the teller a note demanding $13,000 in small bills and a nice message that read, "Thank you. Sorry I didn't mean to scare you." Nigga, what? Surveillance footage showed Gucci knocked on the counter as she tried to get the teller to move faster. When the police caught up with Gucci a few miles away from the bank, they found money scattered in her vehicle. They also reported she smelled like alcohol. Gucci was still wearing her robbery disguise, an N95 mask, sunglasses, and gloves. Pleasant Hill Police Chief Tommy Wright said the situation is sad. In the meantime, this is not Gucci's first rodeo. She was first convicted of robbing a California bank in 1977. Wow. She returned to her life as a stick-up woman in 2020 when she robbed another bank in Kansas City. So she's a three-time offender. Gucci remained on probation for a year after that conviction, after it ended in November 2021. She apparently stayed out of trouble until this latest arrest. It is unknown why she resorted to a life of stealing. She has now racked up a new charge, a single count of stealing or attempting to steal from a financial institution. Her bond has been set at $25,000. She has since pleaded not guilty. So, ma'am, oh, listeners, you can't see this, but Shawty has the full-on face of, "Bitch, I did it. And if you're gonna do something about it, you ain't gonna fight me, ho. Call the popo, ho." That's the type of energy she's giving in this mugshot. But it's just crazy to me because it's like, dog, the first thing that came to mind, I told Mr. Smith this, I feel like this is a very small town and they're playing along with her because she's an old white lady and they pity her. Because I'm sorry, unless she got the blinky in my face about to pull the trigger, ain't no 78-year-old white woman gonna scare me into giving the person money unless it is really trained by the bank to give them the money anyway. Like, who am I gonna worry about this Karen, the vintage, the OG, the retro Karen model trying to rob the bank? You know what? It's just crazy. And I'm glad she has a bond because, and I'm gonna come back to you quickly. Apparently, I think I figured out who was trying to pay her her bond, because if you look very quickly on the screen, there was a cargo truck that was robbed recently in the city of Philadelphia. This particular cargo truck was robbed of $750,000 in pennies. Yes, listeners, not quarters, not half dollars, not actual bills, but in dimes, the 10-cent joints. And literally, the thief stole at least 100,000 in dimes, in particular. So, one, why? Like, I feel like this is like the type of shit you see on the SAT. If Johnny has a truck full of 75,000 dimes, but he gives away 5,000 dimes, how much money is left in said truck? Like, what are we doing on God's green earth? Like, why are they not even turned into bills? Like, I get that metal value like coins actually worth more than the actual physical dollars, but make that make sense. Like, what are we doing, guys? Any quick thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So from these 4 stories, the one conclusion I have come to with all of these, the government is not paying these motherfuckers enough money, not the elderly, not the military. It was probably somebody in the military or elderly that took them damn dimes. I don't know. The second thought I had from the old lady robbing the bank, Gucci.
She was riding guwap. She had the state versus Roger Davis. Dog, I promise you, she definitely playing the safe versus Roger Davis. Fat Belly Gucci playing in the background. Mr. Smith, go ahead.
All right, so one, the bank robber, like you said, she really does have the face of, yeah, I did it, and if you let me out, I do it again. What you gonna do? And you know what? Talk your shit, girl. I got nothing. I literally got nothing. You've been on this earth long enough to rob something in 1977. I got nothing to say at this point. To the people that stole the dimes, I gotta give it to you. If you stole at least $100,000 in dimes, the first thing you would think of is, well, Mr. Smith, if they stole the dimes, how are they going to use it? Simple. If I'm them, I go to Coinstars all around the markets and just do $100, maybe $150 at a time. It'll take a minute, but you'll be able to put them dimes into dollars. And yeah, you might be able to get a little, you'll probably have to pay a small fee for using the machine, but at least you actually look legit. I mean, of course.
You gotta go to the bank and get the little paper rolls and roll them joints.
I mean, yeah, you could do that too. But I mean, if that's the case, as soon as you go to the bank and get the joint, I mean, then somebody gonna look at you and be like, I don't like that. I'm gonna drop a dime on that nigga. Okay, so
I see what you did. That's solid. I'm gonna give you your flowers. That was solid.
Yes, I get one. But yeah, overall, it's like, damn, how do you know the truck had dimes? And then like, yo, you really stole $100,000 in joints? Like Queen C said, government ain't paying enough for these motherfuckers, not the elderly, not the military, the Air National Guard. I don't know. It's insane. So prayers up to everybody, but I'm gonna stay in my business and drink my water.
Hey, talk about it. And with that being said, we gotta take some time. This is gonna be fun. Mr. Smith, play the Sports Center music.
Okay. Let's see if we can get through this fast. So for the NFL, the Washington Commanders might actually be sold for a smooth $7 billion. But you want to know what the crazy part about that is, listeners? It's going to be sold to a black man. That's right. They'll be the first black owner in NFL history, which, hey, if there's any team for him to get, usually when they give black people a seat at the table, it's usually the seat with the broken stool and the broken legs. We got to fix it up ourselves. Well, that's pretty much the Washington Commanders. So, I mean, I guess I'll give it to you. So, I hope that goes through. Because it would be actually interesting to see how that changes the dynamic and infrastructure of the team. The Eagles quarterback, Jalen Hurts, got his big ass payday, $255 million extension with $179 million guaranteed. And honestly, he earned every penny of it. So basically what that means is he's at least guaranteed $180 million in 2 years. And then the rest of it is just backfill to take up the rest of the money. And his cap hits for these upcoming years are like ridiculous, because it's like he only is taking, if I remember correctly, like $6 million or $10 million a year, which, listeners, if you don't know how the salary cap works, put it this way. For a quarterback to count against the cap only $6 million, boy, you can get some weapons with that shit. So I am excited, and shout out to his mother flipping agent, who is a black woman, because Black women run the world. That's all we're gonna say about that. There no need of discussion. We already know what it is. So I hope that everything goes well with him. And everyone then first thought of, well, Jalen Hurts got his extension. Turn your head. Where's Lamar gonna get his? And I thought about it, and I talked to my boy Red Wolf, my big brother Red Wolf, and we came to a pretty interesting conclusion that we don't think Lamar is really trying to get the biggest payday. We think that he's actually trying to switch the money around to get weapons. Hence, Odell Beckham. Hence, they're actually trying to get DeAndre Hopkins, which I ain't gonna lie. If we get Odell Beckham, DeAndre Hopkins, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards in the backfield, yeah, that's scary. That literally, like, you have a route runner, a speed runner, a hands person. Mark Andrews is one of the fastest and best tight ends in the game. Your running game is solid. Your linebacker core is solid. Your secondary is solid. That is a solid ass team. So we'll see what happens. I mean, we're hoping that what might end up happening is on draft night, we hear two crazy stories. One, Lamar gets his extension. Two, the Ravens have traded the second round pick, and probably I'm thinking what's his name? He's our linebacker. For some reason Devin White keeps coming to my mind. It's Patrick Queen. Probably a second round pick and Patrick Queen for DeAndre Hopkins. I'd take that all day, any day. I want Patrick to stay, don't get me wrong, but Patrick Queen, DeAndre Hopkins. I'm taking DeAndre Hopkins. Going to the NBA, which is what Brother X was waiting for.
Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth.
Nah, honestly.
I will find somebody else to edit this shit. I will kick over all the chairs.
In the immortal
Who
words
else you gonna find? Who else gonna do this for free?
I will edit it myself if need be.
Well, we saw how that worked in the first half of the first season, so.
Emotional damage.
Ma'am, raise your hand if you have edited an episode of this podcast.
Raise your hand if you are better at editing the episodes of the podcast. Okay.
Let's be very clear. I choose not to. I can do the editing shit if I want to.
I give it to him. He actually could. But let's get back to this before we keep swinging. Y'all throwing haymakers. So the Warriors are going up against the Sacramento Kings, and I'm gonna give it to the Sacramento Kings. They are out physically being out. They're being extra physical against the Warriors, putting them in uncomfortable positions. The Warriors actually had a chance to tie to go to overtime in game one, but Steph tried to hit like a floater 3-pointer type animation, whatever, which granted he was kind of guarded tightly, so I kind of get it. Kind of wish he would have set his feet, but Steph Curry also makes crazy shots in whatever way he does, so I'm not gonna put it past him. But then the second game, shout out to Sacramento's big man Sabonis, because in one of the scenes you can actually see him like literally like shove Jordan Poole out the way, and they called an offensive foul on the Warriors, which how, but okay. But then the play that everyone is talking about, I forget who put up a shot for Sacramento, but you can see like Draymond is trying to go for a rebound, and Sabonis kind of like grabs him or something like that, and both of them go down. Okay, physical play, no, 50-50 play, whatever. But then when Draymond gets up, Sabonis grabs Draymond's ankle. And listeners, as someone who used to play basketball, like for real for a team, not just putting up shots, being like that old man talking about some back in my day. But anywho, if you try to take off when someone's holding your ankle, that is exactly how you can sprain it, dislocate it, all of that. So when Draymond tried to like get his ankle up and he couldn't, he lifted his ankle up and stepped on Sabonis's chest. People said stomp. It was a little eccentric, I'll give him that. But at the same time, when I looked at all the replays, I just did the same shit. Because what you're not about to do is injure my ankle and put me out for the rest of the series because, oh, I was trying to protect myself. Nah, nigga, you was pushing people out of the way. Like, it's one thing to like kind of box out. It's another thing to literally push someone out the way. And the refs are really calling in Sacramento's favor. So, I mean, I hope that the Warriors really give some more of a fight, especially with it now transitioning to their home court. Draymond apparently will be suspended for the next game. I'm kind of, yeah, I'm 50-50 on that. Do I understand why they did it? Yes. Would I have done it? No, because I would have looked at both pieces of the situation. You wouldn't have got the stomp if Sabonis didn't hold his ankle. And they're saying, oh, well, he's a repeat offender and it's what the extraness afterwards. I'm sorry. Draymond is in a hostile environment and Sacramento is literally yelling at him, F Draymond. What do you want him to do? You want him to sit there and be like, yes, master, they said F me. I'm going to go mosey my way on to the locker room. No, nigga, it's hostile. Have we not?
Like the crazy part is, if I may cut in, it's like part of what they've said, and obviously I'm in these Twitter and like social media streets where it's like, you tried out Joe Dumars, who's supposed to be a mentor to Draymond Green, like a father figure to him, to put out this message. Here's how I know they on some bullshit. You would drop, like, if you're going to drop something like that, you drop it during the day where everybody's able to process it. They try to sneak it in like it was a side piece trying to get into the dorm at a certain university on a Tuesday night. They drop it at midnight when no one is around to really pay attention to that shit. And then instead of the commissioner coming out and actually owning that shit, he treated the shit like a side piece. And he made Joe Dumars come out and say it and use him as a shield. Don't give me, oh, well, he was delegating power. No. If you wanted to be out there, you could have done it. There is literally nothing that would have stopped you if you wanted to really make it a big deal. And on top of that, you start saying, well, he's a repeat offender or past actions. I'm sorry, isn't that supposed to be, he got ejected. Basically, you gave him a double jeopardy, and then you're trying to hold previous actions. It's like, dog, if you just want to say, he's only been suspended for hitting someone in the playoffs one other time. I'm sorry, two other times. Mm-hmm. Once is OKC against Steven Adams. The other one was the finals in 2016.
Yep. That's
two times in a almost 10-year span. And literally, all you're doing is for optics, because all of a sudden it went from the Sabonis is, oh, he has to get x-rays for a chest contusion when that isn't how that works from a medical standpoint, but we won't go there. But all of a sudden it went from he might be questionable to participate to all of a sudden Draymond Green gets suspended. Oh yeah, he's going to play on Thursday. Yeah. I'm not going to be that conspiracy person because I don't want that shit being done to Queen C. Use a nigga. We're not talking about that right now. But the whole point is like, yo, what are we doing? Like, legit, if he got suspended for the reaction, why isn't the person who was the initiator being suspended as well? That's just my take on it. But I've released it. I'm in good spirits. I'm okay. Because I made peace with it. Because if they go down, oh, you think it was bad when we lost? Oh, I'm going to be a terrible hater. Oh, I'm going to be the grimiest hater of all time. You're going to get sick of me. As I smile into the camera. Mr. Smith, I'll pass the mic back to you.
Yeah, but overall, I think what you said makes perfect sense to where I think that's the thing that stuck out to me the most is that he got an x-ray for a chest contusion. A chest contusion has no bones. It's a bruise. So how do you x-ray a chest contusion? Now, it'd be different if it was like, oh, his chest plate feels like it's broken or something like that. Okay, that's one thing, but contusion? What? And then as soon as you hear Draymond is suspended, oh yeah, he's good. He's gonna play. Wait, huh? Whoa, wait a minute. Wait, huh? What? Okay, whatever. So there's that. Then my Lakers, they ended up winning game one, which I ain't gonna lie. I was like, all right, you're showing me something. Rui, you're balling your ass off right now. I'm impressed. D'Angelo, you too. Looking good. That's the main thing I always say is LeBron and AD need people to support and help carry the scoring load so it's not on them, right? Anthony Davis, of course, in his Anthony Davis ways, aka Mr. Glass Face, had an injury and scared everybody because he said, "I can't move my arm," and we're like, "Here we go again." But then he came back out maybe a couple minutes later and found out that he had a stinger in his arm. Meanwhile, John Morant tried to end somebody where he tried to jump over that man and bang on him. But that was the one thing I was always worried about when it came to John Morant. He is a great explosive player, but gravity has a way of humbling you real quick. And if you don't brace yourself, when the weight of it comes down on your limbs, your body's not gonna be able to react to that. And that's exactly what happened. He jumped up to try to dunk on somebody, and when he was so high up that when he came down on his right wrist or hand and sprained it. Like, he was in so much pain. So within that, he couldn't play for the rest of the game, and he's out for game 2. Now, game 2 is actually happening as of the time of this recording. So by the time that you guys hear this, the game will already be over. But right now, the score is 43-56 Memphis, which is why I told Brother X at the beginning of this, is like, oh, you guys should be going up 2-0 with Ja Morant out. Yeah, no. Because again, the Lakers, they don't know how to be like, okay, we're going to attack this vulnerability. They're just like, yeah. But once we finish recording, I'll see what the game looks like. Outside of that, the only other things that are major right now, Milwaukee, who's a number 1 seed, is going up against, is it the Heat?
Yep,
no,
Miami Heat.
They're going to be against the Heat. And there were 2 major injuries in that series. The first one is Tyler Hero, who broke his hand. What makes it weird is he tried to shoot a 3 with his broken hand. Now, I've had a sprained wrist and I've had a bruised hand. I've never had a broken hand before. But even on a bruised hand and a sprained wrist, if I tried to shoot the ball, I felt like the world just pretty much stepped on my arm and was like, nope, you're not getting that. So how the hell he got that ball up and almost went in is beyond me. But he's out for 4 to 6 weeks with a broken hand. So the earliest he could come back is the NBA Finals if the Heat make it, which I don't expect them to. But the bigger injury is Giannis. Giannis actually injured his back early in game 1. And I mean like first 5 or 6 minutes early. And it was to the point where he couldn't run regularly the rest of the game. Like, he ran stiff. And you're talking like that's a big portion of their points, defense, how the offense moves around. So with him being out, it's going to go to Chris Middleton. Well, Chris Middleton is coming back from injury from last year too. So it's going to be interesting to see how the dynamics shift. I mean, granted, at least it's the first round and not them going up against the Celtics, or if they go up against I'm trying to remember the other Eastern Conference team that's really in there, or the Sixers. That's what I'm thinking of. At least they're not going up against the Sixers or the Celtics, because they're going up against them. Yeah, this series is over. But the Heat, that's one team that they could do this to. But anywho, that's all I have for Sports Center. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to learn anything else, hit up my boy Red Wolf on his YouTube and his Instagram. His links will be in the description below.
Play the other music. All right, now we're going to go ahead and get into one of our main topics of this week. It is our Now Mind You segment, where we talk about a few stories that we found on the internet we find interesting or we want to share with the public, and we say Now Mind You in the Black vernacular to give you the key or vital part of said story. So we're actually going to go ahead and start with the heavy and then work our way to the light, I believe it is, if we have it slated correctly. Mm-hmm. Mrs. Smith, you want to take this first one?
Yes. So if you haven't heard, listeners, there was a 16-year-old named Ralph Yarrow that was on his way to pick up his siblings from a neighbor's house. And apparently he went to the wrong house, which it's dark, he's 16, I get it. But the homeowner of the house that he went to immediately shot him twice in the head. Now, it's miraculous that he survived that. And as of the time of this recording, he's discharged from the hospital. But we're trying to figure out, like, what the hell happened for it to escalate this quickly? This man, like this boy, he was just trying to pick up his siblings. He was following his mom's instructions. And granted, he went to the wrong house because I think if I remember correctly, one of them said Avenue and the other one said like Terrace or something like that. And he just went to the wrong one, but he went to the right address, just the wrong like street. And I'm again, I don't understand. Like, if he didn't pose a threat, first of all, in this day and age, we all have a lot of people have Ring cameras, a lot of people have peepholes. Why didn't you just ask through the Ring camera, whatever, hey, can I help you? Or not answer the door at all. How about that? He could have, if he had a cell phone, which I'm pretty sure he does, could have called his mom. His mom would have called the people. They'd be like, oh no, he hasn't knocked on our door yet. Baby, where you at? And he could have did that. But instead, you literally like just open the door and open fire. What are we why are we doing this? Why did it get to this point? So as of the time, I believe his GoFundMe was like what, $2.8 million, something like that. If I remember correctly, something crazy. Yeah. So I mean, I hope that he gets, all of the money to help him in his road to recovery. I hope that he gets the therapy that's needed, because I'm sure this is a traumatizing event when all he was just trying to do was the right thing. And I just need to understand, like, what was going on, like what was happening.
Queen C, go ahead.
Yeah, this is a sad, unfortunate reality. It's now a new thing that Black people have to be afraid of, because something similar happened, I want to say, in New York just days after this, where a young Black woman was going home or to a friend's house and ended up going to the wrong address, and she also got shot for being at the wrong address. But as far as Ralph's story goes, the guy did not open the door until he first shot him. He shot him through the window in the head. Then after he saw him fall, he opened the door and opened fire again on him. The second thing is, this is an 85-year-old white Midwestern man who shot this 16-year-old. And my family being from the Midwest, the one thing I know about a lot of older white Midwestern males, they are emboldened and empowered. He probably doesn't have a Ring doorbell camera. He lives alone. But even at that, why is your first reaction to shoot? That's the question. But this is a man who's gone through Jim Crow, segregation, desegregation. Let's keep it real. There's a little bit of racism there. You could, if you could look
racial
through
prejudice. Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean, yeah, it's all of that. Because if you could look through your window to be able to aim your gun to shoot this boy in the head, you should have realized he wasn't a threat.
Like to continue from the young man's perspective, like it's one of your fears, and it's just like, dog, you got shot because you're trying to do the right thing. You trying to be responsible. You're trying to be a big brother. You're trying to look out for your younger siblings. And now I won't say he's fighting for his life, but he's on the road of recovery, and it's going to be tough, because if nothing else outside of the physical harm, he's going to have mental trauma. And with all the different situations, because it is crazy, because you heard about that story about the black woman up in New York. I remember hearing about a white young lady, who her and her friends got shot by the person who lived in the house, just because they were just trying to turn around, and they went the wrong way down the street, and they were trying to turn around in the person's driveway, mind you, which everybody has done in some form of fashion. It's like, what gives you the right to potentially take someone else's life because they just happen to be on your property or in your place of residence, not causing or giving off any form of physical threat? Like, if you are that scary, you don't need a gun. Do like how a lot of people say, or white people say, oh, they should move out of the ghetto. They should move away from those things. For us as Black people, we can't, because of redlining and redistricting. Cannot say the word today. But you guys get what I'm trying to say. And it's like there's so many social economic things that go into it. It's just like, dog, I can like it is so hard. Like he's 16 years old. The boy can't drive. He's barely in high school. And you basically put his entire life in jeopardy. And then as a parent, I gotta find out that my child has been shot twice. Like, if you were scared, you were elderly, you were worried about possibly trying to rob you, that's one thing for one shot. But explain the second shot once they're down on the ground. If your first shot is enough to put them on the ground, what makes you think they're going to get back up without increased blood loss? Make that make sense. Honestly, you can, because it's like, dog, I don't know, man. It's just crazy to me because it's literally you're fighting in these places where people have power to ban drag shows and to basically defund libraries, which is crazy. Defund, remove books, remove anything that is not that makes you uncomfortable or to your liking. It's like, dog, what is the point of having these things then if you're just going to try to rewrite the narrative, which is very clear. Your racism, your bigotry, your selfishness, all these different words that I want to use, but I'm going to keep it frank right now. It's just disgusting because it's like, dog, why are you doing this? Like, at some point, like, you really have this warped mindset of, I'm doing the right thing, and what I'm doing is correct, and I'm doing this for the people, and I'm trying to protect the children. I knew that this was fucked up was when we had that shooting and one of the congressmen who was over the city, when asked about all the stuff, how do we protect the children, he came out of his mouth when he uttered the words that, oh, I don't necessarily have to worry about it. My child is homeschooled. Bitch, if you don't get the fuck out of my face, when you say something like that, you should have no right to have any say-so on anything else. But that's just me. Anyone else have any more thoughts? Honestly, I think we're going to leave it at that note before I get myself into some more trouble. But speaking of people who are in trouble, Fox News has agreed to pay Dominion Voting Systems $787.5 million in a defamation settlement. So, listeners, for those who don't know, Fox News was perpetuating the big lie that the 2020 election was stolen. And from that, they kept perpetuating and basically trying to cast out on the entire voting system. Now, the whole how it works and the electoral college and popular vote and all that stuff, that's another fish to fry another day. But for you to utter your list because you didn't like the outcome and you told us for 4 years, oh, well, don't be a sore loser. Oh, he won't be that bad. My nigga, we had a whole ass pandemic. When was the last time we had a pandemic?
1918.
Thank you. Like, a pandemic came from what could have been a month-long quarantine. That's simple. But getting back to the original story, the voting systems, Dominion voting systems, have reached a settlement with Fox News in the $1 billion defamation lawsuit where they were accused that the network accused getting this word mixed up. Basically, Fox News was being sued because they basically was talking shit about the voting system, and the attorney, Justin Nelson, announced that the two parties had agreed to that settlement because, I don't know if this is true, but this is hilarious. Someone said on Twitter that Fox News saw that 9 out of 10 jury members were people of color or minority, and they was like, yeah, we're going to go ahead and settle. We know how the story ends. Which, to me, I'm like, dog, if you didn't want these problems, don't, actually do your fucking job. Report the news. Everything is told from a certain perspective. I get that, yada, yada, yada. But, dog, what is the whole point? Like, you might as well just be a Twitter reporter or the Twitter doctor or anything on Twitter where everybody has an opinion, but no one has facts. We just saying shit to say shit. Mr. Smith.
So it's funny because I think it is true. I don't know if it's 9. I think it might have been 7. but of the 10 jurors were minorities. But I think the first thing I thought of was when they saw that, they probably thought that Uncle Ruckus piece where it's like, guilty. That nigga is guilty. Hang that nigga right now. I got the rope right here. Like, that's the first thing that comes to my mind with that, right? But then the second thing is, y'all got money when you can settle out of court for $787.5 million. Like literally, you can you know what? Okay, listen, let's just a quick synopsis. The election happened in 2020. Everybody says these voting systems, they're rigged. They want the Democrats to win. Blah, 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 blah. We need to get a recount. We demand a recount. Tell them stop to steal. Okay, we're going to humor you. We're going to do a recount in the counties that you talked about. And the recount says, well, the voting was true. The only thing you changed it was maybe a couple votes that actually swung in the Democrats' favor. No, we still demand that the voting systems are rigged. No, they're bad. Trump should win. We don't want them. We don't want the Democrats to win. We're gonna sue. Then you see black people in the jury. You're like, yeah, never mind. Like, literally, that's what come out of me. Like, yeah, never mind. But how immature do you have to be for this? Like, everybody knew that Trump lost. We said it. Even when it took, 4 days after the actual election, because I remember that year, the election day was actually my birthday, which that was a fun birthday gift for multiple reasons. But I just remember, like, it was so long, and then they finally figured it out. But for them to go all the way throughout all this and then come out of it and be like, yeah, we're just going to resolve it and move on. Now, the only other thing I have to say to this, and I'll kick it to Queen seat, they settled out of court, right? I wish, I don't think it's probably in the settlement, but I wish that part of that settlement is all the Fox News people, Hannity and Marjorie and the rest of them, have to say either at the beginning of every broadcast or at the end of every broadcast, we were wrong. We lied. They were telling the truth. We're sorry. Like, they need as many times as they were calling everybody liars, cheats, frauds, and all of that, they need to own up and say that shit to all their constituents. But
we know they're not going to. Yeah.
So, first of all, faux news, as I like to call it, because all the shit is fake. Faux news is right-wing sponsored, and we know Republicans got money out the yin-yang. So it ain't shit for them to drop just over $750 million to settle. That's the first thing. These a bunch of rich white people who don't give a fuck. They're going to keep saying racist, flagrant bullshit, keep making more money off of their ignorant constituents. And I hate to say it like that, but you following these people, you really don't have a lot of intelligence. The other thing is, when you mentioned, Brother X, the makeup of the jury, Mr. Smith thought of the Boondocks. I thought of the Dave Chappelle reverse Law and Order skit where it's the white guy getting tried by a jury of his peers, and they turn the camera and it's 10 niggas in the jury stand. Yeah, that nigga did it. He guilty. You didn't even hear the evidence. Well, don't need to. That's what this was.
Oh, that's good. You're right. I take that back.
That is, it's just crazy. Because you know the more funny part about it is, nigga, they got a whole nother lawsuit from another company that that they're about to get sued for defamation for. Like, my nigga, you gonna have to shovel out over $1 billion because you say, oh, my bad, I lied. I didn't want to move to Arizona, Martin. That's what y'all asses did.
Bravo. Wait till I was like 2 points. You shot that from half court, but that bitch went in. I'll give you that.
Thank you. So we're going to finish now, mind you, with this last story, which is very interesting to say the least. But I feel like we're going to have some good discussion on this. So, plus size influencer petitions for free seats and other accommodations from airline. To go further into it, the plus size creator who gained notoriety for advice for plus size travelers has started a change.org petition with a list of accommodations she believes the Federal Aviation Authority should provide. Jacqueline or Jaqueline, shout out to Key and Peele, you get the reference. This influencer from Vancouver, Washington, says in the petition that air travel should be comfortable and accessible for everyone, regardless of size. The influencer detailed the uncomfortable experiences she and her fiance experienced on different flights. During a flight from Pasco to Denver, my fiance was subject to hateful comments, disapproving looks, and even refusal to sit next to them, amounting to discrimination, Cheney explained. Similarly, on another flight, I was forced to occupy only one seat with immovable armrests that caused me pain and bruises. She outlined the steps that she would like the FAA to take to ensure plus-size travelers are accommodated on flights, including employee training. Additionally, she wants to see new planes outfitted with at least one wheelchair access bathroom, policies and procedures for larger travelers, and airport accommodations. One of the most significant asks she has is that plus-size travelers should receive additional seats at no extra charge. All plus-size passengers should be provided with an extra free seat or even 2 or 3 seats, depending on their size, to accommodate their needs and ensure their comfort during the flight. She wrote, "Yeah, y'all thought I was going to do a Ron Burgundy, listeners. Yeah, yeah, I'm not the culture scientist. I love you, though." But, so, I find it interesting. So, let me make something very clear when I say this. This comes from a very logical place. Do I believe people on airplanes need accommodations based on their medical needs? Yes. Do I think that there's some truth in this? Yes. Do I also think that you just trying to get on the come up and use your influence as a way to get free things? Yes. Listeners, I am body positive. I am not body shaming. If you feel that way, we can have an actual dialogue and conversation because we can be fucking adults. But you're not going to talk to me like I'm dumb or illiterate. That's what Fox News is for. So when I say this is something that is within your control. You are able to work on these things to get in this place. I understand people have to travel. I understand people's lives are hard. And people have these challenges. But I need for you to understand there are other fish to fry in this situation. If you feel like that is the case, use your influence just to get new seats or get flights. There are many influencers who are able to travel around the country free because they're working, or write it off as a business expense because you are a content creator. Am I wrong? I don't think so. No. I don't know all the details of it. You get up to a certain point. If this is, you can market and you can brand yourself in such a way that this could work. But to say this as this discrimination, ma'am, you are not the first, let me be polite, heavy-set person to fly on the plane. You are not the first heavy-set person that has experienced this. Yes, you may want some accommodation. Yes, they should be more understanding and maybe look at the designs of planes. But ma'am, come on now. Let's really be real. Mr. Smith.
I'm going to be that nigga. And listeners, this ain't Truth and Transparency. This is Mr. Smith. This is a big girl. And I'm not going to, criticize her for her weight or anything like that. But what I am going to say is, if you're telling me you want a company that's sole purpose is to make money, to lose money to give up the seat that somebody else paid for in order for you to get a free seat at no extra charge, tell me where they do that at. So by that definition, if somebody was to come to your store and say, "Oh, well, due to my condition, I need to get an extra 2 or 3 of what you're offering at no extra cost," would you do that? No, right? So why are you going to do that here? Secondly, as Brother X said, if you're saying because of your weight regarding into You were forced to occupy only one seat with a movable armrest that caused you pain and bruises. Man, them armrests have been the same since the 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. It has been that same way all this time. And everybody and their mama has been able to make those armrests work. Yes. Has it been uncomfortable? Some people it has. Trust and believe. Me, Brother X, our flight back from Costa Rica, bruh. That shit.
Never fucking again. Never again.
That shit was a whoop. And I'm sure Queen C, with her trip to Paris, I'm sure even she was like, oh my God, right?
Nigga.
but the thing is, we dealt with it because we knew what to expect. Them seats are not made for a regular person, right? And yes, to a degree, you might be able to make the seats a little bigger. But then if you do that, you throw off the other metrics that make the plane stabilize. You got to keep it into account. The luggage, the electronics, how the plane is shaped. You can't just think of yourself. To which that's going to take me to this other piece of my mind, and I'm gonna leave it with this. I don't know how old this woman is. I'm going to assume that she's Gen Z, maybe. I don't know. I understand that everybody has been told that you're special and, you need to make the world feel your specialness and you are one of a kind, and I get all of that. But I need this generation to stop acting like everything needs to be accommodated to their personality. Everything needs to be changed to what they like, because that's not how life works. This stuff has been around long before you were here, and it'll be around long after you leave. And I understand that there's certain things that could be changed. And like Brother X said, there could be a conversation for certain things that could be changed. People talking about you, okay, especially employees, employee training. A wheelchair accessible bathroom, that's a tough one. I don't know if you'll be able to do that. But also remember that we're also coming out of a pandemic. Everybody's flying, which means flights are fully booked. Every single time. What's the first thing you hear as soon as you get on a Southwest flight or a Delta flight? All right, hurry up and find your seat because we're on a fully booked flight. Every single flight. Every single time. So you mean to tell me on a fully booked flight, you're thinking, well, because I'm bigger, I should take this seat and the seat next to me, maybe even the third seat. So these other two people are going to have to sit in the aisle? So I just need to understand, like, if you're going to do that, my suggestion would be come up with an airline that's for plus size people. Kind of like, and I hate to use this analogy, kind of like
do it.
Oh, I'm gonna do it. Kind of like Kevin Heart and Soul Plane.
Damn it.
Bruh.
The extra wide toilet seat.
Look, the fact that DL Hootley in the bathroom talking about, so hey, I got some incense, got some, what you need, bro? I got some condoms if you need it. Like, I mean, but at the end of the day, like, understand these things are going to be really hard to change. This is a well-oiled machine that I doubt they're going to change their seats. These seats are uncomfortable for skinny people. So overall, I understand that you're trying to use your influence to make some type of change, but I also feel like, and I hate to use this term, but you're being a little snowflake. A little soft.
Now, Queen C, I hate to say this, before you go, don't go too left. I say that again. Before you say your piece, don't go too left. We don't need to make 3 lefts, a right, and another left.
No, I think Mr. Smith took care of all the lefts. I think he got it for all of us. I think we good.
Okay. I'm about to say your piece then.
So I will say I agree with some of the things she's talking about, especially like the handicap accessible things, wheelchair accessible bathrooms. Agreed. Training for the flight crew to be sensitive to people who look different. Agreed. Absolutely. This is my problem, though, when it comes to these influencers. You want to influence people. You get paid to influence, right? So as Mr. Smith said, you should be able to write this off as a business expense, right? Your flight, it's a business expense because you're documenting the whole thing. You're putting it online. You want new policies and procedures. Listeners, follow me here. She wants new policies and procedures in place for plus size passengers. As a fluffy girl, I get that. But baby, reading is fundamental. Have you not read the airline's policies and procedures already? Because if you had, you would know that policy states that if you need extra space, you are required at the time of purchasing your tickets to buy 2 plane tickets, 2 seats if you need that space. Reading is fundamental. She did not do her research. This is going to fall. It's going to give her, more exposure. And that's probably why she said it and why she's doing it, for the exposure. And I understand that because that's how you make your coins. Get your money, honey. But read them policies too. Because if you making all this money and you don't understand what it is you're actually doing when you do it, take that money and get you some comprehension lessons so you can understand what it is you're reading. That's what I gotta say.
Fair enough. Ms. Smith, do you have any final thoughts before we move on?
Yeah. I made a left and a right than another left. Tonight with the homies. But no, overall, I just, like I said, I agree with everything that's been said. Like, yes, I definitely agree with that. There should be, some changes for people that are handicapped. Like, totally agree with that. Right. And I understand that there needs to be procedures, but at the end of the day, ma'am, if you can help your stuff, sounds like a personal problem to me. But overall, nope. As I was getting ready, as I was getting ready to say it, I'm like, that's gonna be too far.
I was about to say, that's a good Lord telling you.
Yeah.
Not now, my son.
Yeah, no. What did Dave Chappelle say? Nigga, don't do that. That's 5 to 10. Nope, I'm good. I'm gonna shut up.
No, we're not trying to get you canceled.
Nah. I don't want no smoke.
She wanted all the smoke with that one, though.
Nope. I almost made a food joke. Can't do it. Nope. Y'all trying to give me nope. We will not get canceled. Listeners, the Truth and Transparency podcast is a non-body shaming podcast. We support all shapes and sizes. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that to be safe. So I think it is time for us to switch lanes to actually get into this week's topic. This is actually going to be a part 1 of a 2-part conversation that we're going to follow up on in a few weeks after we take a couple of things that I'll get into later at the end of the episode. But if you clicked on this, you saw that we talked about protecting your mentals and protecting your chickens. So I need you to understand, we're going to talk about mental health. We have our mental health checks and we talk and discuss things from time to time and how's everybody doing and where they're at. So I figured that this time of the year, even though it's springtime, it's springtime, some people are still dealing with a lot of different things. And just because you don't have anything, like you're not taking medication or you're clinically diagnosed, does not mean that you don't have stuff going on. Whether it's major, minor, everything in between, you got to be able to understand these things. So here's why it's such a big thing. We're going to take it from the African-American perspective because we are African-American on this podcast. We Black, y'all. So let's talk about this. This article is brought to you by minorityhealth.hhs.gov, which is, if I believe it, I am reading this correctly, it is the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health. So to be more specific, we're going to talk about what mental and behavioral health is. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps to determine how we handle stress and things related to it. Sorry, give me 1 second. How we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. Mental health is important at every stage of life, from childhood and adolescence through adulthood. Behavioral health has more to do with the specific actions people take. It is about how people respond in various scenarios. Behavioral health can be influenced by an individual's mental health. So, with that proper definition and background laying the foundation, let's go into a little bit more. The article continues to explain how does mental and behavioral health affects African-American populations. In a study that was done in 2020, suicide was the third leading cause of death, respectively, for Blacks or African Americans ages 15 to 24. I'm gonna let that sit there for a moment. Another statistic that it gave was that the death rate from suicide for Black or African American men was 4 times greater than for African American women in 2018. The overall suicide rate for Black or African Americans was 60% lower than that of the non-Hispanic white population in 2018. Black females grades 9 to 12 were 60% more likely to attempt suicide in 2019 as compared to non-Hispanic white females of the same age. I hope y'all are listeners. Hope you're hearing these things, because this next one is so true. Poverty level affects mental health status. Black or African Americans living below the poverty level as compared to those over twice the poverty level are twice as likely to report serious psychological distress. Listen, we talk about it all the time, living in America. A report from the U.S. Surgeon General found that from the time of 1980 to 1995, the suicide rate among African Americans is ages 10 to 14 increased 223% as compared to 120% of non-Hispanic whites. So, Mr. Smith, you can roll down. I want to kind of break down some more of these charts. But listen, I want you to kind of take from what I'm saying is that I know it speaks specifically a lot to suicide and death, but I need for you to understand that for people, they're dealing with a lot of things. For example, one of the studies that they showed was that according to a study of people who have experienced serious psychological distress in the past year among adults 18 years of age or over by percentage in 2019, it was 11.9% for non-Hispanic Blacks, 12.7% for non-Hispanic whites, and non-Hispanic Black, non-Hispanic Hispanic white ratio is 0.9. So when we talk about this is a very serious issue. And I promise you, there's plenty more, and you'll be able to read it in the show notes of different statistics of what people are going through. So when we talk about mental health, we're talking about something that affects a very big portion of our life, because we talk about childhood trauma, we talk about PTSD, we talk about all these different things. And I need for you to understand, I believe it's Pavlov, you look at the hierarchy of needs, after like having like the basics of food and the shelter, you're looking for emotional connection. Because I believe there was a study done, it's a very big study that was done where a person, or there was a study of a chimp or a monkey, where when provided with two options of either a fake monkey mannequin that provided nourishment but wasn't made to look like a monkey with like fur and everything, and then there was a monkey that actually had the fur but didn't provide nutrients for it to survive, the monkey in that study actually went to that monkey that mannequin that looks more like a monkey because of the fur, which speaks to there is an emotional need for we as people that if we do not mentally feel like we are supported in a good headspace, everything else doesn't matter. Because if you ask anybody who has dealt with poor mental health, one of the biggest things that is lack of sleep, lack of eating, lack of social connections, and you'll see weight loss is another part of it. So when we have these conversations, I want to really have this space where it's like recognizing we have to address these things in order for everything else to be done. Because I can't teach a child about how to do a certain PE activity if they're worried about being abused at home and worried about trauma at home of there's gun violence or there's other things going on that I'm not able to sleep at night, or I'm worried about having to move from one place to another because we financially can't live in this apartment more than a couple months. So as I open this dialogue, I want for this conversation to truly be about Black mental health in the Black community, where we've come from, where we're going, and what ways are we coping, and how are we trying to better ourselves or move forward in these conversations? As I give my long soliloquy. But I'll open the floor up for any initial thoughts from Queen C or Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, go ahead.
So at first thought, right, when it comes to these studies, you got to also think that during this time that they're doing this research, there was a lot of Black Lives Matter stuff going on, and we didn't feel like, we had any hope, because every new hashtag, it's a horrible way to say this, but it's a running joke with Black people. Like, well, let's add that to the list of things we can't do. We can't shop. We can't, have Skittles and a Arizona tea. We can't wear a hoodie. We can't do this. We can't do that. And I think the one that stuck out to me the most was, I want to say George Floyd, when he literally, like, you could see, like, he's down and he's crying and he's not a threat. His hands behind his back. He's handcuffed. Dude has a knee on his neck. And you're just like, what we've always been taught is just comply. Just comply. So that way, we'll figure this out afterwards. The nigga complied. And he still did it. And then the psychological distress comes when, as children, especially from three of us going through schooling when we did, we were always taught, just do the right thing and everything will take care of itself. Everything will work out. No, because that officer was able to get away. Now, the George Floyd one didn't, but there are countless examples of where we just feel like we're not wanted or respected or understood. I mean, hell, there were so many of these, but I think it's the Charleston shooting where the white boy went to the church.
Mm-hmm.
Nigga, that's church. Like, that's the one place you don't go. And you mean to tell me these Black people opened up with open arms and said, hey, come on in if you want to worship. And then this man guns down 9 people. And then on top of that, they capture him and say, before we take you to jail, you want a Whopper? Or do you want a crispy chicken sandwich? You want the meal or just a sandwich? Like, let that have been us. We wouldn't even made it to the car. But yeah. It's the difference of how we're perceived. And then on top of that, to take it a step further, when you talked about the poverty level, there are so many times, there's so many countless examples, Tulsa, and even in Maryland, where we were striving, we were actually making strides after being free from slavery. And the white people were like literally homeboy off a belly. I don't like that shit. But instead of dropping a dime, they drop bombs and firebomb things, burn things. And it's like, yo, you guys already had a 400-year head start. We're trying to even just get half of what you guys want, and y'all don't like it. Even when we're doing the best that we can with what we have, those that are privileged to do it, great. But you guys are so just fragile, and I guess the word I want to use is, I'm not gonna say that word. I don't have the words for it, but just that you guys are so like, this is just for us, that's it. That you're willing to cause us harm when all we want to do is survive in this world. All we want to do is live. And if you think back, and even if you think to the people that do the crimes and the robberies and all that, always look at why they're doing it. Most of them just want to try to find support for their family, because as Queen C alluded to earlier in the episode, even though them 2 people were dumb as shit, the main reason was they want to support their family. All people want to do in life is enjoy the life of their loved ones, be in a comfortable place, and support. Now, yes, there are some people that are going to be more greedier than others. That's life. But if you were able to make a sustainable living like how we learned the people doing in the 80s and 90s with our families and stuff like that, there will be a lot less than this. But because wages are still the same, prices of rent, as you mentioned, as Brother X mentioned before, about apartments and things going up, and we can't live there. Now we got to move every couple months. That has some psychological fuck ups in the brain. And I'm not surprised by these numbers of how people are just like, you know what? I can't feel it no more.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things that was brought up in the conversation, and I'll turn it over to Queen C real quick, was that if you read further down in the article, it talks about access to healthcare, which is a big part of it too, because understanding healthcare isn't just talking about the medical sense, but you're talking about the psychological perspective as well. Access to psychiatrists, therapists, access to grief counseling, access to um, um, emotional support groups. And it's one of those things where it broke down that non-Hispanic blacks were said it was about 37% that have access to it. Non-Hispanic whites have 51.8%. And non-Hispanic blacks or non-Hispanic white, the ratio between the two was 0.6. And what I want you to understand is that when we talk about mental health, there are a lot of things that go into it. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put a pin into it. I'm gonna let Queen C share a piece, and I'm gonna come back to my point. Queen C, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm glad you mentioned, the access to healthcare thing, because that's one thing that stuck out to me when you were reading the article. And listeners, if you've been with us through season 3, I've said this before. Quick plug, you can catch this on season 3, episode 13, I'm So Hood, when we discussed Ja Morant. I will say this again. Money equals access. How are Black people, how are our people supposed to access the things they need to help with their mental health? Therapists, psychiatrists, people who can prescribe medication to help with their mental health issues if it needs to be medicated. How are we supposed to have access to that when a lot of us are still living paycheck to paycheck? Areas that are low income are being gentrified because it's cheap land, and then it raises your rent, raises land and property value, and then you have to keep moving. You have to keep working multiple jobs. So you either don't have the money to get the access to healthcare, or you're working so many jobs that you don't have the time to do
Yeah,
it. And that's a lot of us. The other thing for me is that looking at these numbers and based off a lot of what Mr. Smith was talking about with, this was really at the peak of Black Lives Matter. This was right after Trayvon, in the midst of George Floyd, in the midst of um, Sandra Bland, all of that. And you see us marching in the streets. You see us chanting, being peaceful, marching. It's the same thing the generation before us did in the civil rights movement. It's the same thing the generation before them did with grassroots movements. And if you don't think that has anything to do with especially Black people's mental health, it does. There's a thing called intergenerational trauma, which is that from one generation to the next, whatever traumas and troubles they've experienced, not only does it affect their genetic makeup, but they also teach their children how to be safe from that. Black people, this has been our cycle for the last 400 years. We have to teach our kids, okay, do this, don't do that, comply. Police officer says do something, you do it. Don't talk back, don't do this. You have to be safe. Don't go to this neighborhood. Don't be inside the house before the street light comes on. That's not because your parents, didn't want you outside just after dark randomly. They didn't want you outside after dark because it was dangerous and you were not safe. You were safer in the house because you didn't know what was going on after those street lights came on. If you even lived in a town that had street lights, let's keep it real.
Yeah, sundown towns are a real thing.
Are a very real thing. And all of that trauma gets processed and passed on to our offspring. And then they learn it from us. They have the genetic DNA to try to help protect their mental health, which is why in some of these studies, numbers for Black mental health is a little bit lower as far as are people experiencing depression versus non-Hispanic white people. That's all built in from generation after generation after generation of trauma.
Yeah. I think a very accurate way of putting things, because I know that that mental health isn't just specific to African Americans, but a great way to look at it was our forefathers and our ancestors had to give us generational trauma, whereas people of a certain race were given generational wealth. I'm gonna say that again. Our ancestors unfortunately had to give us generational trauma, whereas other races were giving generational wealth.
Message.
So keep that in mind. And to get into a point of adolescence, which I want to talk about as well, is that you have to look at the whole child. When you have a child, when they're first born, they're infant, you as a parent are their introduction. You are their first teacher to the world. Before they step into a school, you are teaching your child. And the fact that we have a forced responsibility, because if we bring a child into this world, we are responsible for them and we are responsible for actions, unlike some people who don't take responsibility for them, or we're held accountable for another person's actions, unlike others, is that we have to be very careful what we do. Because listeners, we are all of us are a generation that have embraced therapy. But I tell you, 10, 15 years ago, that was not the case. We're not even talking about my parents' generations or our siblings' generations. We're talking back when we were still adolescents, still teens. I don't know about Mr. Smith. He might have been 35 still.
Come on now, dog. Come on, man.
But I think that we have to be very careful because we create all these new and different experiences that have an influence on how a child or how a person sees the world. If a child or a person grows up in a broken home where violence and shouting and cursing is used to resolve issues, or they think it's resolving issues or how to handle your problems, that is going to provide a kid a trauma, because ultimately when they see a situation like that, they're going to hark back to those initial memories. So you have to be mindful of how a child sees things, which is still crazy to me that we continue to have this conversation about shootings at schools. Listeners, how do I put it? I'm tired of seeing all these things, because I haven't personally been teaching at a school where that happened, but I went to my alma mater, Hampton University, my freshman year, and we had a shooting on our campus at my residence dorm, which I almost could have been interacted with if I hadn't walked my friends back to their dorm that night. And for me, I know that it took a lot of time for me to just get over that trauma of just possibly even being involved in that situation. But for people who are experiencing these school shootings, ain't no way in the world I'm going to expect some child that hasn't even hit puberty, to be able to process, regulate, and understand their emotions and understand the situation, and then to go back to school. Because the crazy part about it is we hear about all these shootings and the initial outrage and the initial results and the sadness, and for some people thoughts and prayers, but other people marching and protesting in the streets. But I want you to think, what are those kids doing 2 to 3 months later when the news coverage is gone, where everybody is done marching in the streets? They still have to live with that. Or kids who get neglected at home, or people who are getting neglected in their relationships. They're not getting that emotional refueling, so it makes people more fucked up and they become numb to it. And that's when you get people who start doing stuff and they take their own life, or they take other people's lives, or they, in some and other unfortunate cases, they start abusing others because they're trying to release this pent up trauma in their bodies onto others as a transference. And when we talk about the mental health portion of it, we have to understand and have dialogue, because I don't know about you guys, but growing up, it was a hush thing to go to therapy or to have a therapist. You had to, if you're going to therapy, oh, well, we don't want our family's business out there. Dog, I will say proudly that my family goes to therapy, or that I go to therapy, and my family will go to therapy. We will be a therapy household. We will have communication and dialogue. I know people have different ways of going about it, by gentle parenting or other avenues, but we have to look at what type of world are we trying to create. We have to not only be the change that we want to see, but we also have to create it in the next generation of people. Like, it's always interesting to me, the dialogue about, oh, these kids are so emotional. But let's really think about it. What's the alternative? They keep it pent up inside, and now you create another broken home because you weren't loved by your parents as a child. Parents have to take responsibility for how they affect their children. Even if you are doing your best, the experiences that you give to your child shape and create how they emotionally and how they deal with it mentally, what they have or don't have in their mental toolkit to be able to cope with those different situations. Quincy, go ahead.
To that point, because that is such a great point, the other thing that especially our people have to realize is that something that may seem minor to you as an adult is very major to a child and how their psyche forms. You may make an offhand comment, and down the road, you forget what you even said, but that child remembers, and that child has processed it, and it is a part of who they are, how they react, what they've become. And maybe down the line, they may want to address it. And this is the one thing I don't like, especially when it comes to the older generations, is, you try to address an issue, something that you experienced, and it may not necessarily have been purposely, but something you experienced from your parents. And they say, oh, I don't remember that, so it must not have happened. Wrong response. Because that teaches children, I can't talk to you. I can't trust you. So if they can't talk to their parent, who are they able to talk to? They have to, you have to have that dialogue, because eventually these children become adults, and they have to be functioning, mentally healthy adults. They can't do that if you're shutting them down at every turn when they try to address a situation with you.
I agree. I feel like when it comes to dealing with that, there's always a stint to always have open communication and kind of agree to what you guys have said, where a child trying to understand how this life works, there's stages of it, and there's things that, they may not understand. I mean, hell, my parents for the longest time didn't tell me a lot of things going on about life because they wanted me to kind of stick in that window of like, enjoy the simplicity of it while you have the opportunity. Because when you get to the real nitty gritty of what life is, life gonna give you a Mike Tyson left hook followed by a Floyd Mayweather combination real quick. And a lot of people, even in our college years, they found that out immediately. Like, oh, student loans ain't really hitting like it's supposed to. Oh, you gotta take care of this. Oh, this extra stuff. People couldn't stay on campus. They had to find jobs immediately. Like the things that you have to do just to survive sometimes, which then kind of takes a little bit further back to, which I do sometimes dislike, the older generation be like, well, when I was in college, I was able to afford this and take care of people. Do you understand how much houses cost back then? It was like 18 grand.
First off, 4 years of college back then was like 7,500. So I don't even want to hear that.
Yeah.
Like, you got a car loan and you pay for 4 years of an education. And then when I do it, now I got 6-digit student loan debt, and I can't even get a minimum wage job.
Hello.
So I think that that's a part of it. And when we get into this conversation of, it's just, and mind you, we're going to have a part 2 of this because there's a lot that comes to this conversation. I want to delve deeper because coping mechanisms, or what I like to call your mental and emotional toolkit, is a very big part of it. Because one is building up terminology, be able to frame and put a name on what you are feeling. Things like general anxiety disorder, depression, some of the words just came to my mind, but understanding what they are and be able to classify it allows the person to have a certain level of freedom, because I grew up in the church. I love the church. I'm a Christian. I have Christian beliefs. But an older generation used to talk about, oh, you can just pray it away. Guys, older listeners, parents, adults, please understand. One of the things my pastor said all the time too is, yes, you can pray, but see a trained professional. Just like you would go to a doctor when you medically aren't right physically, you need to go to a trained professional if you're not right mentally. Everybody's trying to figure out this thing called life. Not everybody has it all together. Not everybody's always 100% happy, go lucky, joy, joy. And even then, the people who are usually the ones who are going through the most shit. Because we have created this society, we have, as a whole, as a group, have created this society where we have to put on this facade. It almost ties back to our previous episode when you're like fronting for the gram. I'll give you a prime example. For those who don't know, Twitch, the music DJ for the Ellen DeGeneres show, I believe is the correct name. But the night or the day before he unfortunately took his life, he had posted a really dope dance video with, I believe it was his wife or his partner. And you would think that he didn't have a care in the world. Everything was 100% good. You don't know what type of demons people are fighting. You don't know what's going on in the system. And sometimes, unfortunately, that weight is too heavy for them. And some people turn to drinking. Some people turn to drugs. Some people turn to abuse. Some people turn to fighting. Some people turn to whatever it is that's going to give them some type of relief, because we try to figure out a problem by finding a solution, and we keep trying to find solutions until we find one that eases some of the pain if we can't get rid of the issue. Quincy?
That is such a true statement, and it's so unfortunate. And they tell us all the time, lean on your friends, lean on your family. But again, when you get into those conversations where you get shut down, it makes it so that you don't want to talk. You just want to show people what they want to see. And that's another thing that I have an issue with is, a lot of times you're seeing the coping mechanism, or you're seeing the reaction or the symptom of whatever the mental health issue is, and you're labeling these people, oh, you're depressed, oh, you're anxious, oh, this is a bad child, when it may not necessarily be any of those things. It could just be an offset of what the actual problem is. But
Right.
if we're not having those open, honest conversations, we're never going to get to that point where we can figure out what's going on with us. How do we, fix, not necessarily even fix it, but how do we live with it? How can we use this to our advantage? Because I will be very honest, I learned as an adult, and I'm still not medically diagnosed, but as an adult, I realized I am ADHD. And it took having my sister's kids run around me, which majority of them are ADD or ADHD, and realizing I act like that. I do that. I zone out. If I'm anxious or nervous, I talk a lot. And if I'm depressed, I withdraw and I don't talk at all. And all of these are offset symptoms of ADHD. I'm not being medicated for it. I don't feel the need to. I found something that I can use it to my advantage. I'm an administrative assistant. For those of y'all who don't know what that is, I am managing people's calendars, moving meetings, booking rooms, booking flights, meaning as fast as my mind can move is as fast as my hand moves. And it allows me to do my job efficiently. Not everybody has that privilege, but if we can have these open, honest conversations, it would be a whole lot better for our community mentally. And shout out to the neurodivergent community.
Thank you. And I think that is a good part of it. And I think we have to, outside of understanding terminology, we have to educate ourselves. If you are going to have a child and you find out the child is diagnosed, and listeners, please, if you have a child if your teachers and your school or people who are trained are noticing these tendencies, before you immediately assume, oh, they're just trying to they have something against my child, take the time to actually educate yourself. Ask questions. If you don't think that that's the case, ask them why that you're thinking this about my child. What behaviors are they exhibiting? Okay. Well, what is your thought process? Continue to discuss it and have dialogue. Because when you have dialogue, you're able to understand the perspective. Because I can tell you, yes, there are some cases where it's just being pushed off as, oh, they have this going on, when they need just guidance or they need better structure, or you are too scared to give them the type of love and support that they actually need because you don't have the life experiences. You have that, but you're also trying to get the knowledge to be able to, okay, say, hey, I did some research. I looked at these different articles. Let's work together to figure out a solution. I'm not at that stage yet where I want my child to go down this route. But before we do that, let's try X, Y, and Z. Have we tried this before? What are some things or what are some tools that I can work on with them at home? Because listeners, you have to understand that it is not always on the professional's part to make it livable. You have to do the work too, especially if it's a family member. Like, I won't say that. That's private. But there are plenty of examples where you have family members who may have mental illness or even have mental health issues, and you have to work with them. You have to be there for them. You have to understand that, hey, this is a process, just like weight loss and just like with trying to get better at a skill. You got to sharpen that iron until it's strong enough to be able to cut through anything. And sometimes you have to resharpen it. And sometimes the sword breaks and you have to figure out a new way to solve things. It's an ongoing thing. So before I close out the discussion, were there any last thoughts, Mr. Smith, Queen C?
Nope.
All right. With that being said, I think we're going to put a pin in this. I want to come back to this conversation, but for those who've been sticking around, and I've kind of hinted at this earlier in the podcast, we're going to, in the spirit of mental health, take a 3-week break to kind of refocus and focus on family and some time away. Everything's okay. The podcast isn't going away, but we're going to take just about a 3-week break. You know, every season we take a little bit of break because we got life and other things that we want to take care of and focus on. So while we're gone, we're not going to leave you without episodes. What we're planning to do is to hit you guys with some flashback episodes. So if you have any episodes that you want us to kind of re-edit or remaster, or Mr. Smith to remaster as he's editing this. But if there are certain ones that you are very much interested in, you want to hear, or you want new listeners to hear, hit us up on our social medias. But before I give you those, our transparent moment, understand, educate, take action. That is the best way to deal with mental health. So if you want to hit us up on our social medias about the podcast or any of your thoughts or things you may agreed or disagree with, you can hit us up on our Twitter at the TNT Pod 123, Truth and Transparency Pod on Instagram, Truth and Transparency Pod on TikTok, the Truth and Transparency Podcast on Facebook, the Truth and Transparency Podcast on YouTube. Did I miss TikTok? Nope, I got it. And you can always email us at truthandtransparencypod123@gmail.com for the culture scientists, for my guests, for Mr. Smith, for myself, for all of our listeners and supporters. If this podcast gets no bigger than what it is right now, they are forever grateful. We are forever grateful. And in immortal words of my father, eat the elephant one bite at a time. Peace.
I promise the stomp, the whole stomp, nothing but the stomp.
You is a nigga.